Welcome, everybody, to Connecting the Universe. I'm author and researcher Mike Ricksecker, back at you with another interactive class out of the secret library of the Connected Universe. Although we're not really in the secret library tonight. Call it more of like a satellite library. On the road again, and got a nice little setup going on here, and we're making it work. We're making it happen. So tonight we're going to be talking about consciousness. We're going to be talking about eternal knowledge. We'll be talking about Tesla, how all of that fits in. And let me know down in the chat how this sounds. I'm actually using a new soundboard this evening. So by all means, please go ahead. Let me know that everything sounds good. It's essentially the same thing that I had before. Everything's supposed to be set correctly, or the exact same way that I had it before. But you never know. From device to device, things kind of change. So for those listening to the podcast version of this later, I do want to let you know, please join us every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time for the full live Connecting the Universe experience on connecteduniverseportal.com. There's a 30-day free trial there, which gives you access to, of course, the weekly Connecting the Universe interactive class, with the after show. Those that are watching this on the YouTube portion, you don't get that after show. That's for members only. You also get sneak peek and behind the scenes videos, monthly Q&A videos, exclusive articles, insider travel blogs, video travel blogs, including ancient Egypt, American Southwest, Ireland, so much more. Now, we're going to be getting some clips of those this evening as well. All that and more, connecteduniverseportal.com. If I could talk correctly. And by the way, for those that are members, go ahead and get the app. You get the app loaded up on your phone. You get all the notifications pushed your way, so you know when new videos are posted, new articles, when this show goes live, all that wonderful stuff. Also do want to let everybody know, of course, we do have the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour that is coming up in April 16th to the 28th. I do have to, on the graphic there, get that 17 changed to a 16. Our first official day touring is the 17th, but our welcome dinner is on the 16th. And depending on when your flight comes in, it might be 15th or 16th. All that fun stuff when it comes to the airlines. Wonderful, wonderful tour. So many secret places we get into. And I'm not kidding. I just posted one of them 2 or 3 days ago on my social media. An ancient tomb that we were able to get to within Tanis, that the treasures from that tomb are in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo right now. They don't usually let people in there, but Muhammad knows the guys. And even for him, it was like, the first time in 15 years he'd gotten in there, but he does hold quite a bit of sway there. So great to see several people down there in the chat tonight. Android Paranormal, great to see you. Jason Thompson, great to see you again as well. Tom McNicholas, tell me everything sounds good. Awesome. Really, really appreciate the feedback on that. All right, so our class question for this evening is, what do you believe consciousness to actually be? So we did have some responses to this. Sarah Yusuf said energetic construct. Very cool. Jen said consciousness is the higher power everyone keeps talking about. Alina says, I feel like consciousness is actually the very essence and part of us that keeps us deeper. I'm sorry, that keeps us spiritually awake. If I could stay on the right line, that keeps us spiritually awake. It helps us feel deeper and prevents us from being an empty shell. People who lack it are basically zombies. So it's kind of a interesting concept. They were talking about, people who kind of lack consciousness are more like zombies, because there are different ideas and concepts of like background people. You look into like Dolores Cannon's work. Background people, quote unquote, filler people. Nick Bostrom, who in 2003 wrote an article in the Philosophical Quarterly about whether or not we were living in a simulation. We'll touch on some of those concepts here later on. It suggested that, quote unquote, shadow people, not in our supernatural sense, right? And this is, again, the term shadow people has been around for centuries. And with his concept of shadow people here, it was more like, okay, if we're living in a simulation, then these type of people really only have sufficient resources to be able to kind of do the basic things. And it taxes the system a lot less. So if you think of like a computer program, you might have all kinds of different things populating the program. Take a computer game, what have you. A lot of those NPC non-player characters that are just kind of character walking down the street, has not much really to do with the game or simulation at all. Excuse me. Those are taking a lot less resources, but that's kind of his idea of shadow people there. It's kind of, I believe, what Alina was alluding to there. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into this idea of consciousness. Now, with my latest work here, Travels Through Time Inside the Fourth Dimension, Time Travel, and Stacked Time Theory, we do talk about where consciousness resides within the levels of the different various dimensions. Let's go over this real quick. I know for those that have been around for a while, I've seen this before. The various dimensions here. We have up to, according to our theoretical physicists, up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions. The one that you see, the first one you see here on the screen, that's actually a hotly debated dimension, dimension 0. It's a point. Then you have dimension 1, that's a line. Second dimension is a plane, basically a flat surface. Think of like a piece of paper, but a piece of paper actually does have 3 dimensions, a very, very, very narrow third dimensional side. But when we think of 3 dimensions, we generally think of a cube. Now, our consciousness resides on the 4th dimension, which is the dimension that we call time. Now, time is just a human construct. We use it to keep track of things. It's a tool. It's a measurement tool. We use it to keep track of the seasons, when to plant the crops, when we need to show up at work at the right time so our supervisors don't get upset with us, that sort of thing. When the school bus has to come and pick up the kids and all of that sort of thing. So it's a tool. And time for across the cosmos, different parts of the universe, is going to work differently there than here, just in the way they may count it. You might even have a species that does not count it. Think of every other animal on this planet. We're the only ones that keep track of time. Cats over here don't keep track of time. They generally sleep during the day and walk around at night, and they walk around during the day too. But you have nocturnal animals, you have daytime animals, so they have a biological clock, but they're not sitting there looking at a watch being like, okay, do I need to go to the food dish now and get a bite to eat? It's not like that. So with consciousness being in the 4th dimension, that makes us a very, very interesting type of being, in that we are multidimensional, because our bodies are 3-dimensional objects. So we have a 4th dimensional consciousness inside a 3rd dimensional body. Now, if we were to go to 5th, 6th, 7th dimension, then we would be able to see time, or the 4th dimension, as a physical object. That was just kind of an overview. I'm not going to dive into all of those details this evening. We've kind of covered that when we've gotten into we had the introduction to Travels Through Time some months ago. We've gotten into what real-time travel might look like. Others were just a part of the Travels Through Time special presentation, that sort of thing. Some comments filtering in downhill here. Jim Nachinsky's in the house. There's Sarah Youssef. Tammy Harkoff is also with us this evening. And Android decided to tackle the class question for this evening. He says, my theory/answer is a type of energy that transcends dimensions and is not yet able to be detected or measured by science, which is a certain frequency that can only be emitted by a biological source. I like that, because we're going to be talking about science's interpretation of consciousness this evening. It's they fight over this. They fight over this. So this is pretty wild. All right. So I wanted to talk about. I want to start off with Nikola Tesla in all of this. I have fun talking about our friend here, and we're going to start it off with his teletomaton. And this was a really, really fantastic idea 130 years ago. This was in the 1890s. He actually developed this thing. And this is actually, it's a miniature submarine. It's a miniature boat. And he developed this during the Spanish-American War as a way to he was trying to prevent the loss of human life. His idea was that if you could get two sides or both sides of warring factions to utilize machines to fight each other rather than human lives, and you could save human lives. So the idea here was to send this miniature submarine out, attach some torpedoes to it, and it would launch the torpedoes at various boats and what have you. And this was all controlled via radio waves. I mean, that's kind of what Tesla specialized in, AC power and radio waves. Again, his grand vision was free wireless energy. But there are different ways that you could utilize that. Now, with the teletomaton, he envisioned this as actually the really first intelligent, sentient machine, because the idea was that it could issue its own commands. It could learn from its environment, detect where the target is, and then make a decision as to whether or not to launch the torpedo. This is really the world's first drone. And this idea here is really artificial intelligence, way ahead of his time. Okay. Now, he took this idea even further. And what he said, about teletomatons and taking it further than this little submarine, this little boat that he created. He said, long ago, I conceived the idea of constructing an automaton which would mechanically represent me and which would respond as I do myself. Such an automaton evidently had to have motive power, organs for locomotion, directive organs, and one or more sensitive organs so adapted as to be excited by external stimuli. Whether that automaton be of flesh and bone or of wood and steel, it mattered little, provided it could provide all the duties required of it, like an intelligent being. So you know what he's talking about here? He's talking about developing a robot, what we would consider a robot these days, with artificial intelligence in it. It would look and act and respond as he does. This is 130 years ago. Okay. They weren't thinking about artificial intelligence back then. He got laughed out for these types of ideas and concepts. Nobody took him seriously. He talked about other things like, having the knowledge of the world in a device that you could put in your pocket. Well, that's our cell phones today. Now, he didn't have the idea of, what a cell phone would ultimately look like and how it would function with his drone technology there, the teletomatons, his idea of a teletomaton of himself. Now, he's thinking back then of, well, it's going to be gears and wheels and radio waves and these sorts of things. He didn't know anything about the silicon microchip yet, which would come along after he had passed away. But those ideas came to him. He was tapped into something. These were ideas that were 100 years ahead of his time, which is why he got laughed out of the ballpark with it. Nobody was taking him seriously because, they were just looking, okay, can we transmit, a piece of communication from land out to a boat in the sea, which is essentially because Tesla's ideas were so grandiose. He's trying to send a signal across the world, and you know, the other pioneers at that time were like, well, we got to do the small step first. Let's just get a signal out to a boat. He was way past them, and his shtick on this was that, well, yeah, I already know it's possible, so I don't need to actually develop it. I don't actually need to create it. I already know it's doable. I've got that part in my head, and I know these other things that I want to do are absolutely possible because, again, I have the idea in my head. So let's go ahead and go forth with it. And because those ideas are so, to the others of the era, so far-fetched, you got laughed at, you got funding pulled, the Wardenclyffe Tower, J.P. Morgan pulled his funds. One of the deals, of course, was that Tesla's grand idea was in free energy, and J.P. Morgan's looking at like, I want some money out of this. But he also saw that Marconi, using Tesla's technology, was sending messages to different parts of the globe, a much, much smaller distance. But because they could see that happening, he's like, oh, I'm going to put my money there. Now, the invention of the radio, originally attributed to Marconi, it was after Tesla died. They actually did, in a court, award that to Tesla. So, fun fact there. So, what was Tesla? Where was he getting these ideas from? How was it he was so far ahead of his time? Well, we're going to talk about the collective unconscious, among some other things this evening. I'm going to take a look at your comments here first, because quite a few things came in while we were chatting. Yeah, Sarah saying making any dream into reality is just a matter of time and creativity. Yeah, Tesla, well, in funding for him, he kept running out of money, unfortunately. And yeah, Android is definitely mind-blowing. So Jason saying, if further Tesla possibly had extraterrestrial influence / guidance, any information on that theory? And all of the, and I've read some biographies on Tesla, and everything that I've read on Tesla, as far as his biographers are concerned, never mentioned specifically any sort of extraterrestrial involvement. But he did, when he was younger and living in Serbia, he did say that he astral projected, not using those terms, using other terms, but essentially described astral projecting. So he was connecting with the ethereal plane in a variety of different ways. Another way that I believe that he was doing that was through the collective unconscious. We have talked about this before, and this was developed, this idea came from Carl Jung, which basically, through what we call the collective unconscious, each person is connected with universal experience of the human race, to the history, thoughts, and behaviors of all. And people are able to access information that is readily available to everyone. So in some ways, you can kind of look at this as the cloud computing of the connected universe. There's an eternal knowledge that's out there. That's past, present, future, all the information is there. How to utilize, access, manipulate the universe, all that information is there. And over the generations, we pick up on some of these things. So this is just a basic diagram of the collective unconscious. You have the personal consciousness, personal unconscious. That's individual to each person, but the collective unconscious is accessible to all. Now, we talked a little bit about this when we covered the Akashic Records on Edge of the Rabbit Hole about, was that a month and a half ago, with Emily Harrison. It was there at the end of August. And this is very, very similar in concept to the collective unconscious, in which the records are there for on everyone. All of your past lives are there. All of the information of the cosmos is there. The Earth has an Akashic record. So instead of me kind of going on about that, I have a clip here from Emily from that interview that we had with her describing this.
Yes, the Akashic Records are the realm of consciousness that hold every detail about your life, about your soul, past, present, all potential futures. And this intelligence is recorded from a neutral perspective. Neutral meaning unconditional love and zero judgment. This is the way that God sees you, that Source sees you. This also holds all of your highest potential. I feel like the Akashic Records are the number one most powerful tool for expanding our consciousness, because they just work so gracefully with us to show us where we're blocked. These are the two big places that I love using the Akashic Records, are where we're blocked and clearing that out of our way, and then stepping into our highest potential, into genius level creativity. And Mike might not use the same vocabulary as I do about tapping into the Akashic Records, but his book and the intelligence that he brings when he shares his gifts and genius is coming from that etheric realm, super conscious intelligence, because it opens us up to a higher level of awareness, just like you described, Victoria, of being able to see the past lives, see the pieces, see the patterns, finally click, making sense. And while we have so many amazing healing modalities that are available to us here on the planet right now, when we take responsibility for healing ourselves, when we have the aha moments and the neural pathways shift, that's us taking ultimate responsibility for creating our lives, and it empowers us when we do it ourselves. It's like getting a boost at Jamba Juice. You get extra power for your journey, your manifesting here on the planet. And I think the healing is more effective because you're participating it in this way where all of a sudden you understand. We know from the 7 Hermetic principles that the universe is mental. Everything is created from a thought. And so when you have a different thought or expanded awareness that we get in the Akashic Record, you're already 10 steps ahead of the game where you were before. So that's really the place that we need to start in the Akashic Records, because truly, when you think about every detail of your past, present, future, and it's not just human souls. Mother Earth has an Akashic Record. The galaxy has an Akashic Record. The stacked time theory has an Akashic Record. Relationships have Akashic Records. So once we learn to tap into this library, this resource, we can begin to extract knowledge in missing pieces that are going to further our society. We get to tap into advanced levels of creativity and bring technology to the planet, new medicine to the planet.
All right, so that's a rundown, just a couple minutes there of Emily explaining the Akashic Records. I'm going to put a link here later that can take you to that interview with her. That was from back in August. She also runs the Akashic Academy, so I want to thank Emily for that and her insight there. So we did have some questions come in during that. So P.S. Fader now. So one of Jimmy Church's followers there from Fade to Black. Always have a great time with Jimmy. Question is, what was the connection if Tesla's theory of free energy in the ether in the Great Pyramids in Egypt? So, yeah, that's it's a great question there, because a lot of people believe that Tesla was taking the concepts from the Egyptian pyramids into his ideas of free energy and the Wardenclyffe Tower. So that was something that Tesla studied. He did study the construction of the Great Pyramids, did a lot of research into ancient Egypt, Egyptology, for lack of a better term. And he wanted to incorporate that, the idea of harnessing the Earth's energy. And he knew the ancients had done this. And so it was a matter of trying to figure out exactly how. So when you look at old diagrams of the Wardenclyffe Tower, you will find that it wasn't just a tower resting on the ground. No, he had a shaft that went down into the ground to be able to harness the Earth's energy there. And there's a lot of stories of various tunnels that were under the area and what have you. I would love for somebody to go to the old Warden Cliff site, because apparently not all of it was filled in, that those tunnels are supposed to still be there, and actually dig in there and find those tunnels. But yeah, he was, same concept as like the pyramids or the stone circles, the megalithic structures, that they were harnessing the Earth's energy, and he wanted to be able to do the same. I see that Raven is in the house as well. And then Alina's here. And then Sarah is asking, how is someone supposed to work on our own awareness? I would say meditation. That's something I can't brag about it. It's something that I need to work on as well. But I don't know how many people that I've talked to and worked with in these different areas. Jen, talking with her about transcendental meditation. Emily there talking about the Akashic Records. It's a lot to do with meditation. And we've talked in different aspects of what comes through with travels through time, that in different states of meditation, we're able to see and experience different things, whether that's another point in time of some sort of time slip and things like that. Little out of scope for this evening, but good question. Tina's in the house. Great to see you, Tina, and you are welcome. P.S. Fader not. All right, so that's the rundown there on the Akashic Records. And I believe that when these different ideas that come to us, it seem like a eureka moment. I think a lot of what Tesla was doing there, and not just him, okay, other people of that era seem to all of a sudden be tapped into the same ideas and concepts. Tesla was way ahead of them, but all of a sudden you'll see throughout history that people are in different parts of the world, no connection to each other whatsoever. And all of a sudden, they're all developing the same technology. They're all doing a little bit of a different way, but they're all trying to accomplish the same thing. And it's like, how did that happen? It's like that record was suddenly made available, and those that had an interest in it and had some sort of know-how in that area were made a beeline right there, or picked up on it and started to do something with it. I've had my own experiences with that. I've covered them before, but we'll move on because we're about halfway through the show and we have other things to talk about. So a couple articles that came up here recently about consciousness, science, these sorts of things. Posted this one the other day. Is consciousness part of the fabric of the universe? Physicists and philosophers recently met to debate a theory of consciousness called panpsychism. They debated a number of different things. Panpsychism was one of this article out of Scientific American. Just to give you a quick idea of what panpsychism is. It's one of the world's oldest philosophical theories, going as far back as Plato. It's described as a theory that the mind is a fundamental feature of the world which exists throughout the universe. But probably a more clear statement of this is from Plato. Says, this world is indeed a living being endowed with a soul and intelligence, a single visible living entity containing all other living creatures, which by their nature are all related. Does that sound familiar to you? Yeah, it kind of sounds like the connected universe. So it's been a little while since we covered panpsychism. That was like 2.5 years ago, and it's interesting because it actually came up in a class that we did on the future of humanity, and where we are going from here, from our planet. At some point, we need to get off the planet, and because at some point, about 5 billion years from now, the sun will become a red giant and will encompass the earth and destroy us. And that's not going to happen just overnight. It's not like, the 5 billion year mark hits like, 2012 or something. And boom, all of a sudden that's it. It's going to gradually become that big red giant. So it'll be before 5 billion years that we need to get off the planet. And I know this seems like a far cry from now, but we need to start taking those steps. And that's where we talked about this, because one of the pioneers in that area had used some quotes from a scientist who very much believed in panpsychism. So yes, this idea that we are all connected, that beings and entities have a symbiotic relation with each other. And so we covered this a little bit as well. And this is from a different group. We talked, over here with this particular article was physicists and philosophers. And this is just recent that they had this debate. This article here is from a couple years ago, but astrobiologists suggesting the Earth itself may be an intelligent entity, so that the Earth itself has its own consciousness. So the debate rages on, right? So you have astrobiologists saying the Earth has its own consciousness. And this is something, what's fascinating about this, you have these different scientists that are arguing about these things today, but our ancient cultures have been talking about these things for thousands of years. The Earth having its own consciousness. When we talk about Mother Earth, it's kind of what we've been talking about for a long time here. And then consciousness a part of the fabric of the universe. Well, this is saying that our consciousness, your consciousness, the person next to you, their consciousness, they're all interconnected, yes, to the Earth. Kind of what I said at the end of the one Ancient Aliens episode. In the way that we are all connected together, I to the person that was interviewing me, us to the planet to the sun to the solar system, to the galaxy, to the universe, and beyond, by the way. This is not the only universe that is out there. And I don't mean like a bunch of parallel universes with a bunch of different ones of us running around out there. Actual physical universes with their own set of physics and different chemical makeups, different nuclear structure, that sort of thing. But we're all connected to each other. So another one in which the debate was raging here recently was this article here. Consciousness theory slammed as pseudoscience, sparking an uproar. Researchers publicly call out theory that say is not well supported by science, but that gets undue attention. Okay, I have a lot of different things I'm shuffling around here. So I'm going to throw a small snippet from a Morning Mug video that I did, it was last week. And then we're going to do a bigger piece here in a moment, but it's going to kind of set up where we're going with this.
Welcome everybody to Mike's Morning Mug. So for my Morning Mug post that I make, which I do every day, I posted an article, basically a group of scientists that are arguing about what consciousness is. Their take was mostly on when do we actually say something has consciousness? Like when does a human have consciousness? When does an animal have consciousness? Many of them would probably argue that, a tree or a plant or grass or whatever, has consciousness to it. Where it's going to kind of come into play for us in our society is in artificial intelligence. And at what point do we actually say artificial intelligence has achieved a sentient consciousness?
And so that's a little taste there of Morning Mug video that's on the Connected Universe portal. I do have a link down there in the description for those that aren't members. That's one of the many things that we do out there. But yeah. So again, here we have scientists arguing over, what exactly consciousness is and when we would actually say something has a consciousness. With this particular one, they were actually arguing a theory describing what makes someone or something conscious called the integrated information theory. And I'm not here to really dive into what integration information theory is. But yeah, they wanted to label this as pseudoscience. And they're saying that this created this massive uproar. There's now polarization in the field. What's fascinating to me is that you have all these different individuals who are supposed to be the quote unquote experts, can't agree on anything. And then they go through all these great lengths to try to discredit each other. And so we even have this one here. I've posted this one several times before. I do address this one in Travels Through Time. Researchers suggest the human soul doesn't die, it returns to the universe. And this was Stuart Hameroff and Robert Penrose. And in these particular studies, in Penrose, you'll recognize from the movie Inception. He wasn't in it, but the Penrose stairs that are in that movie, you know, the ones that go around and round and round and never seem to end. They go up, they go down, but it's a constant circle, paradox. Those are based off of his work. But with the work that he was doing with Hameroff, they were looking at microtubules inside the brain, and that this is supposed to be where the consciousness is stored. And then when the person dies, the consciousness is released to the universe. Now they can't say where it goes. They have no idea, and they fully admit that we don't know where it goes. But they did make a differentiation between the consciousness and the physical body, which goes all the way back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this particular class, was that our consciousness is on the fourth dimension and it resides within a third dimensional body. When the 3D body dies off, the fourth dimensional consciousness goes, we don't know. We talk about, homeworld. We talk about reincarnation. We talk about heaven. These are ideas that we have come up with to explain where the consciousness goes after we pass away. So I have a bit of a longer clip here, and we're going to get into some ideas about AI and where this is kind of taking us down the road. But in that same morning mug video, I kind of opined on the whole argument that these different scientists are having with each other.
Yeah, I guess my whole rumination on this is to keep an open mind, right? That we want to keep the different possibilities open, that we're not to be so closed-minded as to, we came up with a definition and we're going to stick to it. It's kind of like, with ancient Egypt, going to another area of science there where, some of those guys are so embedded into their narrative as like the Sphinx is this old and the pyramids are this old, and as evidence comes up to say the contrary, they're like, no, it can't be, because we've already written it into our records that it's this and this and this. Okay, but we've got other evidence showing other things, which, yes, it does have ramifications for what that means for our history. That's part of the adventure, right? If we are discovering new things, so what if I've been teaching this for 40 years and I've got 3 books talking about it? Well, guess what? I've got a new book to come out. Okay, so we can say this is the revised edition, the updated one. We've got a brand new one. We'll come up with a new series of books. I don't know why we have to totally, just discredit the whole thing because it flies in the face of everything that we've been doing. So you can look at it as all that work was a base for what I'm doing now. Look, I've got, with Travels Through Time, I've got 13 books to my credit now. But I'm really just more focused on the last three: A Walk in the Shadows, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, and the new one, Travels Through Time. It's not to discredit the other 10, but it's like, all that work was a base, kind of a starting point, kind of, almost like training for what I'm doing now. And that was 15 years worth of work. Okay. My first book was published in 2014. A Walk in the Shadows came out in 2020. Right. But really at the very, very beginning of 2020, like I had the book was finished and files submitted and all that stuff in 2019. And then the actual publication date was 2020. So 15, 16 years worth of work. In fact, I'm going to make a post here soon on the fact that I just signed my first book contract 20 years ago. But it doesn't discredit all that work that I did with those other books. In fact, if you go through all of that material and look at my current work, you will find a couple of stories pulled from those older works. Travels Through Time has a story in there from Ghosts of Maryland. It has a story in there from Ghosts and Legends of Oklahoma. Those are my first two ghost books that I wrote. So even though it's like my work has taken a very different direction, it doesn't discredit everything that I did beforehand. That serves as a base for everything that I'm doing now. If we go somewhere else with it. And that's where I think some of these scientists get like too tunneled that, I have this work and I have to hold on to it because, that's what I did, 20 years ago. Like, you need to continue to grow. We need to continue to evolve and mature. And as we learn new things, that kind of helps to flesh out what we've done before or even take us in a new direction. Not forgetting what we had learned previously, it might change our perspective on that. But it doesn't discredit what we had learned. It gives us something to draw from. And down the road, as we start to incorporate more and more things, it might be something that pops up like, oh yeah, I remember that from 30 years ago. And it's not, with this new information, it's not exactly the same, but how does that fit into the puzzle now?
All right. So, yeah, a little lengthy there, but I felt that it was important that, with the scientific community, we've looked at about 5 different articles here now, and they're all kind of arguing with each other about what consciousness is, how it works, how the universe works in relationship to consciousness and what have you. And, each one is like, no, my idea. I think some of these are old school holdovers. And I mentioned there with ancient Egypt, we see that a lot there, especially in a lot of our archaeology. We see that quite a bit. And so I believe that we need to keep an open mind, because as we get into some higher technological fields, we're going to have some really, really difficult questions to try to answer here, especially when we start getting into things like artificial intelligence. So Raven had asked here earlier, other things that we were talking about a few minutes ago, could that be related to the 100 Monkeys experiment? So basically the idea of the learned behavior of the monkeys kind of become once enough had learned the skill that somehow other monkeys that were not around that area had suddenly learned the same skill, almost like a mental projection and mental telepathy. It's a difficult one to assess. You could say that maybe that was possible. Maybe there was enough of that information put out to the universe that then they were able to connect to it. Again, all the information is there. So was maybe the heightened awareness that caused the other ones to be able to tap into it? you look at the human species over the millennia, and there have been massive degrees of varying technology that has been learned over the years. I mean, we still have tribes out there that are still essentially hunter-gatherers. We still have some of those on this planet while we're jetting around and using computers and things like that. So it's hard to really say with that. What I will say is, going back to like the collective unconscious, all the knowledge is there to be able to tap into it. So let's see. Yeah, Lena, we never stop growing and learning. Absolutely. Jill saying it would be great to figure out how to break through the barriers so we can really communicate with the deceased, other dimensions, shadow people, planets. And I believe that we can. I absolutely believe that we can, that we do have communication between other dimensions. We see these things play out sometimes. We don't exactly always know what the catalyst is. We at times speak with loved ones that have long since passed. It might be some sort of visitation or what have you. I believe that we can project ourselves to other places in the universe, in the cosmos, other points in time. I absolutely believe that we can do that. It's all through the consciousness. Let's see. Sarah, what about connection between consciousness and life? And that's kind of the great debate. So at what point do we say something is conscious? We do see things like plants react to various stimuli. We see it react to their environment. We see it react to music. Is that because of a certain frequency or a vibration? Is it because the trees are communicating with each other? Some months ago, we had thrown an article up there in which there were studies saying that they actually could communicate with each other like that. Does that mean that they have an actual consciousness within them? Now, that would be very, very difficult, especially for those that are, we'll just say, and I'm not putting anybody down or anything like that, but you have a lot of people that are vegetarians or vegans that some do it for health reasons, but some will, go that route because they don't want to harm a living creature. Okay, I totally get that. I totally understand it. But what if we then prove that, well, the plants over here have a consciousness too? Then what are we stuck in that situation? What are we stuck eating then, right? I think you definitely make a fair case that, dogs, cats, various animals, have a consciousness on a different level than us. So what defines that level of consciousness? And these are the great debates of our time as we start to get more and more into, I'll put it up here again, as we get closer to developing true artificial intelligence. And this really goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning with Nikola Tesla, where he was talking about building an automaton of himself that could it look like him, it would act like him, would be able to make decisions like him, or even make decisions on its own. So it wouldn't be the consciousness of Nikola Tesla that he's talking there. It would be, would it be a consciousness? And this is something that we see, like television show Westworld really, really dove into what exactly was consciousness, and when would you say that this machine was truly alive and conscious. So you can make a machine act very, very similar to a human. It's all, okay, decision making. Okay, you're given this situation, and these are the different, we'll just say like maybe 5 different possibilities of the way that you would react to it. And there might be certain percentages that maybe I'll do the first thing 70% of the time, the second thing 20%, and divide up the rest, right? And then you run it through like a random number generator, to pick one of those 5 things, based again on the weight. and then that ends up becoming a decision. And this is done, like that. It's a computer. Boom. Okay, so it seems you need that degree of randomness, to make things seem more natural. And so that's what this would do. And it would do it like that, kind of like we do in our normal lives. Okay, so that makes this machine a very good maybe decision maker or seeming decision maker, but is it really conscious? So been a big to do here lately. We talked about it earlier this spring. So you had Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak and these guys talking about, things like Chat GPT or this is too quick. Now that's business, right? When you're trying to say, they need to slow down. Well, that's because their respective companies were also working on artificial intelligence, and they want to be able to catch up. Now, talked before, Chat GPT, as far as and others like it, I'm not just singling one out. But that one does a very, very good job of writing very nice papers, articles. You throw something in there, and the response it gives you back is very, very well written. They've done a nice job with that. It's not always 100% accurate, which is kind of the problem with it. But is that conscious? No. It's giving some nice responses and it's able to kick things back to you. Well, I wouldn't say it's conscious, but at what point in time do we get to the point where we can say this thing actually has its own consciousness, that it is actually alive? And that's what these guys are arguing about. Now, when do we say something actually is alive and has consciousness to it? Other than, of course, physically, being alive, like a living organism, that sort of thing. So, and yeah, like this, Raven. In a laboratory, the plants reacted to scientists thinking they were going to hurt the plant. Yeah, and you see different things like that where plant life will react to different stimuli. So there's a reaction there to its environment. Is that just simply a vibration that's put out to the universe? Again, everything is frequency resonance vibration. We've been talking a lot about this when it comes to time travel, stack time theory, all that. But it's true just with our basic surroundings right here. Like you can walk into a room, and if your friend, partner, whomever is in a bad mood, right? If something's wrong, you can kind of walk into the room and be like, whoa, okay, what's going on, right? You feel that. And so things like plants can also react to those different stimuli. And those are very, very fascinating studies. The question becomes, is that just reaction to the frequency resonance vibration of the room or the environment at the time? Or are they actually having some sort of emotional response because they're conscious? Yeah. Philosophical debates of our time. Sarah's asking, if there is universal consciousness, then does it mean that new life captures consciousness? Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, I believe, again, everything is connected. Now, does that necessarily mean it has a consciousness? Well, we had these guys back here, these astrobiologists, suggesting Earth may be an intelligent entity. So therefore, would that mean that the Earth itself has a consciousness? So every time we dig into the ground, are we hurting the Earth? I think some would make that argument that yes, we are. I think there's been a lot of cases made for when we do something terrible for the environment, that the Earth the Earth is mourning for what's going on to it. The way that we are harming it. Now, even without human intervention, bad things happen to the earth. It could be meteor strike. It could be, forest fires start by lightning, things like that. There could be a massive weather effect that destroys an island somewhere, or a massive volcanic eruption that destroys. Those things happen. They harm the earth, they harm the environment, that sort of thing. So does the earth itself physically feel that pain? Can the earth make a conscious decision to lash out at us? These are all interesting, deeper philosophical questions about our universe and our environment. So, all right, we're getting down toward the end here. I can answer this. Jason, a bit off subject, but want to ask Mike, would be at any events or conventions coming up soon? I'm going to meet Alexandra Holzer next week. Would like to meet you in person at some point also. Glad you'll be meeting Alex. Tell her I said hello. Different things have come up. So I'm going to be doing a Unveiling the Shadows online event, kind of like I just did with Travels Through Time, the Travels Through Time special presentation. I'll be doing Unveiling the Shadows here. I think I'm setting it up for the 19th. I need to get all that put out there. I haven't done one of those in about 3 years, actually. Next speaking gig. And Jen, I know when I was on that interview the other night, I got this transposed. But December 2nd is, oh shoot, I'm going to mess this up. What I have the Oliver House, and then I have Phoenix MUFON. Let's see here. I transposed it last time, and I don't want to mess it up this time, especially on this. So I have it on my website. I'm trying to bring that up right now. Make sure you guys have the right dates. So let's see here. Where is my website? It's in one of these tabs. In any case, you can go to MikeRicksecker.com and look at my calendar. I think it's, let's see. Yeah, I believe, Oliver House is December 2nd, and then Phoenix MUFON is December 9th. And then Conscious Life Expo out in LA is February 9th through the 8th through the 10th. It's that weekend. And there it is. Jen's got it. December 2nd, Oliver House, December 9th, MUFON. Thank you. I knew I was going to get it at some point. I appreciate you asking. So, all right. If there aren't any further questions, then I'm going to go ahead and kick over to the Connected Universe portal, just the after show. I do want to thank those that joined us here for the live portion. Really appreciate the conversation, the questions, all that wonderful stuff. For those that are listening to this later on, you can join us live. ConnectedUniversePortal.com every Wednesday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll say, till next time, time really exists.